welcome to today's episode of the Balanced Approach podcast. I'm your host, Louis Padian. I hope that you're doing well and are enjoying the podcast and the topics we've covered so far. These podcasts are released every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, so be sure to subscribe wherever you are listening to be kept up to date. So last episode we demonstrated the power of the small consistent improvements and aiming for that consistency at 1% and how much impact that can have over a prolonged period of time. And this episode is along a similar sort of approach where we sort of introduce the term marginal gains, which is what we're looking at with those 1% there. But it's a great example and how we can actually make huge leaps forward with just a few simple changes. So there's a great example of this, and one of the founders and probably the best example of this is the story of David Brailsford, who became performance director for GB Cycling in 2003. So at the point of when he started, since 1908, British riders had won just one single gold medal at the Olympic Games. And it's even rumoured that bike companies didn't want to be associated with GB Cycling as they felt it would hurt their sales and sort of reputation. In that 110-year period of the Tour de France, there have been no British cyclist had ever won that event. However, Brailsford had this new and now widely adopted concept of marginal gains. With the changes he made over the next couple of years, it led to unprecedented success for British cycling. In the 5 years under his leadership, the team started to dominate cycling. At the 2008 Beijing Olympics, they won 7 gold medals and won 60% of all medals that were available. They won 8 gold medals at the London 2012 Olympics, set 9 Olympic records and 7 world records. British cyclists also won the Tour de France 6 times in the 7 years between 2012 and 2018. And during the 10-year span from 2007 to 2017, British cyclists won 178 World Championships, 66 Olympic or Paralympic gold medals. This approach that he brought in around marginal gains was adopted by athletes, teams in other sports, but also by businesses and organisations in other fields, and that these small incremental improvements can add to big differences over time. But what did he actually do? He has a background in sports science and was brought in to sort of oversee the whole of GB Cycling, trying to improve it. So they did the things that you'd expect around redesigning seats on bikes to make them more comfortable. They rubbed alcohol on the tyres of their bikes for better grip. They asked riders to wear electrically heated overshorts to maintain ideal muscle temperature while riding, and also allowed them to get some sort of feedback on how each athlete is responding to each particular workout. And they tested different fabrics in wind tunnels and sort of had their outdoor riders switch to indoor racing suits, which were lighter and more aerodynamic, which are things that you might expect from sort of a cyclist performance director to look into. Like, what can we do to these athletes on this bike? How can we improve performance? And almost looking at the direct impact of those things. But what he did went far beyond the actual cycling, because what they did were things like they repainted the inside of the team truck white to make it easier to spot dust or dirt within that truck, which stops things getting dirty, stops athletes getting sick, or ensuring that things are clean. They used alcohol swabs to clean the inside of the riders' water bottles to reduce the risk of bacteria and contamination, and again, stop riders getting sick. They hired a chef to develop personalised meal plans for each rider for their individual dietary needs and preferences. They introduced a new type of team car that was more aerodynamic and had more storage space for equipment. They brought in a range of massage and cryotherapy techniques and recovery techniques so that riders could recover from training and races more efficiently. They worked with a sleep expert to allow riders to develop better sleeping habits and get a good night's rest before each race and also post-training to recover better. And they also made sure that the riders had access to mattresses and pillows that they would be used to, so they take those around the country or internationally with them as well. And one of the really interesting things is that they brought a surgeon in to teach the riders how to wash their hands, again, to reduce them getting sick. And all of these changes, alongside many other things, led to massive success. And you might be thinking, well, this is a really interesting story and it's fascinating, yes, but what does that have to do with health, wellness, weight loss, or performance in the gym? And this is actually a very similar approach that myself and probably a few other people use with clients as well. But we work across spreading less effort across a few areas to make slight improvements instead of just focusing on one thing and trying to make it perfect. And this is where I see a lot of people struggle. They start a diet and they think, right, I'm going to go from 0 to 60. I'm going to change my diet and make it perfect, quote unquote perfect. As we know, sort of perfection doesn't really exist, but they put a lot of stress and strain, a lot of effort into one thing, or they try to make their workout perfect. So they put together the perfect workout program that probably might not be suited to them, or they take it from a bodybuilder or someone who they aspire to be like, and they copy their program, when actually they might be missing lots of other sort of low-hanging fruit or simple wins that could be improved with a little bit of effort, not necessarily perfect, but making things a little bit better. So when I look at improving people's health and wellness, we go beyond just, or if it's weight loss, for example, eating less and moving more, we actually just look at a wider range of things that could be impacting those areas. So instead of looking at just their food or their exercise, we look at potentially how social situations could be improved to lead to better outcomes with regard to food decisions, their fruit and veg intake, how these interactions add or take away from their energy potentially, and maybe having more difficult conversations that might need to be had to make them happier day to day. We might make a small change at breakfast by increasing their protein, their fibre. Maybe enjoyment's a key part of that as well, something that they might be missing out on, taking time for themselves, prepping ahead, and how that can impact later on in the day, how that can impact food decisions later on in the day with their fullness, reduce snacking, improve their headspace, give them time to set themselves up today. They might need help with their time management around that, and it could help with their dietary adherence. So making those small changes at their breakfast has wide-reaching impacts. Another thing that's often missed is looking at stresses and how small changes in reducing stress or the ability to handle stress, which is inevitable, can lead to better decisions around people's food, around their activity, and how we might implement those, such as things like journaling, having difficult or better conversations, taking a few moments, managing your breath a little bit better, and spending time doing things that you actually enjoy. And that was probably one of the common things that I used to work on when I worked with NHS patients would be they'd come to me potentially wanting to lose weight was a common sort of goal that they had. And yes, we'd talk a little bit about the food, but and around physical activity and how we might monitor progress. But we might go, right, so what do you actually enjoy? And some people might not be able to give me an answer to that. I go, right, so what do you used to enjoy that you don't currently do? And actually, part of this process is actually us making sure that you're doing those things, that you're actually making time for you to have those moments of joy, happiness, and time away from life each day, a couple of times a week. And they might think, well, but I came to you to tell me what to eat. Well, actually, it all clicks together. It's all they're all pieces in the puzzle. They're all having wide-reaching impacts. If you're happier day to day, if you've got things to look forward to, then you're probably going to make better food decisions. And if we can include things that you enjoy that have some form of physical activity, fantastic, then you're going to be more inclined to move a little bit more as well. And then also adding things like reflective practice can help reduce stress, manage headspace as well. If we're looking at things like potentially going for a little bit of walk beyond going, well, we're going to increase our calorie burn, but that could be a time for them to just get away, manage their stress. It could be a time to maybe have a phone call, catch up with a friend or family, walk the dog, which is a task that a lot of people have to do. It could be time in nature to help manage their headspace and sort of center and be mindful, practice gratitude, or even something simple as running an errand. They might have to drop some in the post box, or they might have to go and pick something up from the shop. So all these things are potentially a bit left field when I suggest them, but they're all supporting common goals of health, well-being, weight loss, happiness, etc. So as you can see, I could probably go on for hours about all these things that you could look at, that could be looked as maybe singular actions, decisions, and yeah, that is true, but these actions and decisions rarely happen in isolation, and they have wide and far-reaching ripple effects, I'd say. So one decision that you make in the morning could impact decisions or how you feel and actions you take further on in the day, and you might not be able to join the dots between them, but there could be a link there. Potentially just addressing, making a simple change earlier in the day could make things a lot easier further in the day. So from my experience, a key takeaway from this is that it's much easier to move a few habits or behaviors or parts of people's lifestyle that we might say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you feel you're doing it? Your sleep, your fruit and veg, your physical activity, your stress, your time with others. And they might rate themselves a 3 or 4 out of 10. And it would be a lot less effort and a lot easier to do and be more consistent with to move a couple of those areas to 5 or 6 out of 10s, rather than trying to take one of those and make it a 10 out of 10. So in short, instead of making one thing or picking one thing and thinking, right, how can I make this perfect, and feeling like that's going to be the key solution to achieving your goal, often picking 2 or 3 things that you could improve on and have a little bit of progress, but be consistent with, not necessarily perfect, but just being better with, could be the key to making lasting and phenomenal success. So I'm going to leave you with another question today, and that is, what do you feel those 2 or 3 things are that you could be doing and that you're going to focus on that could have meaningful and lasting change if you were consistent with them? So there you have it. Thank you very much for listening to today's episode of the Balanced Approach podcast. If you have any questions, queries, or would like to reach out to me, please do. I am at Louis Padian Nutrition, which is at LOUISPADIAN Nutrition on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and all other social media platforms. If you're looking for support in achieving your goals and living a healthier, happier, and more balanced life in the process, click the link below and inquire about working with me. Remember to subscribe to the Balanced Approach podcast wherever you're listening for more insightful episodes, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.